Hey y'all, it's Kika Wise. I'm so excited to be here, and you are checking out Scoop B Radio.
Scoopy Radio on the plane, on the train, on the airlines, everywhere you need to be. I guess plane and airline is the same thing. Nonetheless, make sure you subscribe to the Scoopy Radio podcast on all streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeart, or simply visit Scoopy Radio wherever you get your podcasts because we are in there like swimwear. Brandon Scoopy Robinson here, Kika Wise there. She is a woman of knowledge, a woman of knowing all things, and I've known you for a pretty long time.
Pretty
Man,
long time. Pretty long time.
what's going on?
We go way back, right?
We do. For those tardy to the party, Black Box is her branding arm, scaling and more, but also Kika Stretch is her baby. And from what I understand, rather, you started that business with about, was it 50 or $500 in your pocket?
I started that business with my last $500, literally.
So it's interesting for those who are listening and watching over YouTube. You and I connected when I hurt my back and working out with my trainer and my back locked up. And we just started talking. You and I actually, go back to grade school. We went to a school in northern New Jersey, but when I had lunch and that conversation changed a lot. My
Yes.
branding, my perspective on just lifestyle and more. Should we start with Black Box or should we start with Kika Stretch?
I think we should start with Kika Stretch because that's how it all started.
Yeah. So tell me how it all started.
Okay, hey guys, thank you so much, first of all, for having me. I appreciate it. I started Kika Stretch as a professional dancer who was sick of being a starving artist and I wanted to earn more income. So I started stretching people inside of a tiny gym by my house, and people loved it. I use stretching because it's something I already knew how to do. I possess the skills to do it. And so I just printed brochures from my home printer, brought them to the gym, started stretching people. And I was acting, I was dancing professionally, but then it got to the point where I was sick of being a starving artist. So I literally went to a diner with my best friend and my mom, and I'm like, what should I do? Should I start a business or go back to school? So, they're my biggest supporters. They're like, start a business. I started asking other people, you don't know anything about business, go back to school. Well, I don't have enough money to go back to school. So I'm going to start a business. And so I literally started with my last $500. I printed out more brochures. I rented out a small little room that I shared with a real estate agent. And I had a ball, a mat, and I created a method of stretching that would help people release tension from their bodies. Once the first person bought a package, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Like, people are buying into it. And I just built it from one client to the next.
I like that story. You have serviced a lot of people with your Kika method. And those who may not know about stretching, why is that important?
Yes. So over time, your body creates a cast that kind of constricts your body based off of what your lifestyle looks like, how inactive you are, how active you are, and you just start to really basically shrink over the years. And so as a professional dancer, I knew the importance of keeping your body open and just being flexible, even if you're not using it. So if you don't stretch, your body literally just starts to, roll up into a ball. If you don't use that range of motion that you have, you'll lose it. And so, what stretching does, specifically Kika Stretch, is it helps open your body back to its fullest limit, allowing you to just feel free and not be weighed down by all the tension and trauma and stress that typically would weigh the average person down.
I like how that sounds. I went through that process. Mom had my back feeling like new. I was there. And it's funny because, ever since I've been seeing a chiropractor for the last 3 years, in the combination with going to Kika Stretch, everybody says to me, yo, you look taller, you're walking taller. And I can personally attest that your stretching method has worked wonders for me, and she didn't pay me to say that.
I didn't, but I didn't.
So you transitioned into, you know, creating one Kika Stretch place where you rented a space, you networked and you connected with real estate folks, and then you built a bigger space.
Yes. So basically, I had two locations. I also, at the time, had a small son. He was 6 months old. I started as a single parent. Most people don't know that because I didn't tell them because, people are very judgmental and I was trying to build a business just based off, my brand. So I didn't want anything to prohibit anyone from making the wrong decision, doing business with me. So I kind of kept that to myself. And so my son was 6 months old at the time. I was tired. I was running two locations, and I literally drove into a McDonald's drive-through, like the parking lot one day, and I took a nap just to get to the second location. I was falling asleep behind the wheel, and I was like, there has to be a better way to run businesses where it's not so exhausting. And that's when I started doing research on how to, open more without being exhausted. And that's where franchising came into play. I started figuring out how to build a franchise model.
I like that. And so, how many locations do you currently have?
We have 7 right now. We're adding on more by the week. We have a new exciting model um, that just positions us to be the leader in the stretch market. So very excited about that. And it's really, and I know we'll talk about this, but it's really about working smarter, not harder. And also the economy is shifting so much, so rapidly, like every single day. It requires you to shift how you do business. And if you don't shift, you're just going to fall off. So, fortunately, I've been, figuring out branding for a while now. So I was able to shift in the right direction.
And I'm guessing that that shift has a lot to do with Black Box.
Well, the shift is independent from Black Box because the Kika model, I created a 2020 version. But yes, it has helped me shift into Black Box because when I first became a franchisor in 2011, 2018, I was the only Black female, according to records, one of the only Black people in the whole country. I was named the youngest female franchisor in the country. So you can just imagine everything was new to me. It was a new world. I had to figure out a lot by myself on my own. Many of those lessons were extremely painful, which later became my brand story. But all those lessons, I was like, what can I do with everything I've learned? Like, I just became such a source of knowledge. So many things that I learned and discovered, and I was trying to figure out how I could use all this information. And so that's where Black Box Franchising was formed, an opportunity for me to help small business owners, just scale the right way and grow brands.
Tell me more about scaling. Many people hear the word scale, they think of weight. I'm sure that that's a derivative somewhere. For those who aren't familiar with what that means and what that entails, school us.
Oh, that's a good one. So this is the Kika version of the definition. Okay. But for me is scaling is in regards to business is replicating and growing your brand in an upward motion successfully, which means revenue wise, exposure. It's not just about revenue, but exposure, strength, building a strong brand. And businesses and brands are two separate things. And that's what I really want people to understand. We put so much of the conversation is building businesses. But businesses can fall very fast. I think we all know that. It's brand creation that lasts for generations to come. So scaling is moving in an upward motion successfully over time.
So, does scaling involve spending money or time or both?
Oh, wow. Shout out to Scoop B for these amazing high level questions. Amazing. One of the best interviews for sure. Um, Scaling, oh, you said money. or time? So for me, it's more about time. Because if you grow something too fast, it has the potential to flop. And money, gross, how much money you're making has nothing to do with the vitality of a brand. It takes time. So I would put more emphasis on time and building something strong that lasts, which has nothing to do really with money. It's about building the foundation, and then the money can just help you scale faster.
Hmm. So you've heard of the book Outliers, right?
Yes.
So Malcolm Gladwell talks about the 10,000 hours.
Mhm.
How would the 10,000 hour method apply to scaling?
So I personally have not read the book, but I have heard about it. Um, for me, usually people start businesses because they want to have more time to themselves, right? They want to work less. Or, if you're used to having a job 9 to 5, you clock out, you're done. You get to enjoy your weekend, you shut your brain off. That is the complete opposite of what it's like being an entrepreneur. My brain, I have to force it to shut off. I'm literally thinking 24/7. And so you put in a far greater amount of hours than you would if you worked a 9 to 5. But the difference is it gives you life. It brings you joy because you're creating something that you own. So if you do create a business and then turn it into a brand, you're going to put in far more hours than you ever would working a 9 to 5. But those hours are going to help generations to come eat. So it's like, I'm putting in all the hours. I don't care how many hours. It's exhausting. It's the most exhausting thing I've ever done in my life. And I've delivered children. I gave birth to 2 children. Building a business is way more exhausting, but it's also far more rewarding.
No, that's fair. Okay, so I look at big brands like Apple, McDonald's, Starbucks. Um, Not necessarily focusing on them, but the likes of them. When years ago, when those brands and those imprints were created, what do you think their day to day was like?
Grind, hustle. Um, Before McDonald's was McDonald's, they spent years, if not decades, creating systems and processes. What are systems and processes? If I were to give you a book and I said, read this book and you'll be able to run my business, those are systems and processes that you can replicate and get the same results that I did. And that's what franchising is all about. That's what scaling is about, building systems and processes that run without you. So what people don't understand is that when you build a business, you're making money, but most businesses that I've talked to have no systems and processes. What they've done is created a job for themselves, right? Because a business thrives without you. A job is something that relies on you. So when you think about these early brands, it was running, figuring out what works, figuring out what doesn't work for the early stages. And then once they built those systems and processes, that's when true brand creation would begin.
So, for somebody like Michael Jordan or LeBron James who worked as employees of their respective NBA teams, how do you transform you as a player into you as a brand?
Oh, I love that question because I find a lot of, while my jump shot is not like a Michael Jordan, my experience of being the creative force behind acting and dancing and selling yourself, for lack of better words, and you learn to be creative enough to become a brand and you don't even realize it. So for those players, they've experienced brand creation. They've seen it happen, with the companies they've worked with, but also themselves. And I believe one day they realize, oh, I am a brand. So all those skills, all those things that you've learned to kind of position yourself in the forefront, that's how you create a brand. And I believe they took those lessons and early skills and they were able to successfully grow their own brands from their experiences.
So, do you look at brand as more of a lifestyle or do you look at brand as more of a business?
A lifestyle. A lifestyle. Branding is completely separate from a business. And I like to say the brand is the soul of the business. And so many of the businesses you see are soulless. There's no brand around it. The only way you can create a brand is by overcoming obstacles, facing challenging times, and growing as a person from those experiences. And that's how you start building a brand. If you look at the biggest brand stories, their brand stories, it's always filled with these things that you're like, wow, like this is so amazing. They overcame so much, because that's the only way to truly build a brand, by going through life's obstacles.
So how is Shaq's business different than Shaq's lifestyle?
Ooh, shout out to Shaq. Shake Shack or Shack Shack? No, I'm playing.
Shaquille O'Neal.
So Shaq's lifestyle, I would say, is embedded with his businesses, because you build your brand based off of your lifestyle, what you believe in, what's important to you. You live like a brand is living and breathing, and it becomes a part of you. So it's almost like an AI version of yourself. So I believe that his lifestyle and his businesses, there's a similar line. While his lifestyle might be a little bit more personal, his brand is the more professional version of his lifestyle.
I like that. I like that. You've been a wealth of knowledge. Where can people find more information about Black Box as well as Kika Stretch?
Yes, so you can go to blackboxfranchising.com, and you can learn more information about how to turn your business into a national brand. And if you are stiff and you need to stretch, you can visit kikastretchstudios.com to find your nearest location. We're also opening more and more each week, literally. So if you're interested in being a part of that growth, you can also find out more information about our franchise there as well.
Enough said. Kika Wise, you are off the hot seat. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.